What is going on, everybody? My name is Teddy Baldassarre, and in this video we're going to be talking with one of the most genuine guys on YouTube, John from The Kavalier. During his daytime hours, he is working with some of the biggest retailers on how they can approach consumers with their fashion products. And then on his channel, he has grown tremendously in such a very short period of time. So we're really excited to be talking with him. Please give this video a like if you enjoy these interviews. In addition to that, always leave comments down below on how we can continue to improve. But without further ado, guys, let's jump into the video. Today we are joined by, I think, one of the most authentic people in the menswear space, John from The Kavalier. So John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. That's very heartening to hear.
So John, I've actually been following you for a while. It's funny how this kind of all came to be and how we got introduced to each other. So the first video I saw of you was talking about best shirts, dress shirts for men to buy. And I've always liked just your authentic. I could tell that, you really care about bringing forth, the best advice possible for just guys out there that are trying to figure out where to spend their money. My question is, so The Kavalier stands for gentleman in German. Where did this all start? Why did you really just get inspired and want to get involved in menswear to begin with?
Well, the dress shirts was where I eventually got to, and I was always part of it, but it really came out of trying to pick out the best new mattress. When I was putting this all together in my head, I really wanted to find. At the time, you could buy Lisa, Top of the Needle, and Casper. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy all three mattresses, sleep on all of them, use my sleep data to pick the best one. And that premise would also make a great, basis for picking the best menswear. Because at the time, I was also I had worked in a law firm, and I was buying dress clothes and ties all the time. And I was going to more of a business casual. Like, you know what? I want great sweaters. I want great chinos. I want great shirts. And I can't be the only guy out there. But I couldn't find people that were really doing that online. And so I was one of the first videos for Bonobos on YouTube where somebody just talked about the clothes at all. Frank and Oak was that was my very first video. And so I realized that there weren't guys covering the brands that I wanted to buy. And so I had a little bit of background in video and I had a little bit of background in social media. So I was like, well, I may as well be the one to do this. And 3 years later, I now have a pile of clothes over here that I need to open up because the micro brand world has just exploded in a way that I couldn't have predicted, but makes total sense. Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about your channel, but I think there is an important thing here for both of us. Is I noticed that you work in a SaaS company, and it seems like a startup. Do I have that right?
Oh yeah, we're a small SaaS company that works in the retail sector. So we're primarily focused in technology for retail and fashion companies.
Okay, and if you don't mind, I would like to just kind of talk about that a little bit. For one, I think there is a misconception of a lot of people when somebody starts a YouTube channel. There's a question of, are you doing this full time? How money kind of comes in the door for influencers in this space, especially. So could you maybe just talk, because you're working full time just like myself, and I think there's a lot of just crossover between both of us, how you're able to find that balance of creating a YouTube channel, and I know you're also a dad as well. Can you just talk about that journey over the last 3 years and how you've managed to do this?
Yeah, so I started the channel. It was actually mostly on my honeymoon that part of the problem was I had all this time to think, and so we had 2 weeks in Aruba, and I was on the beach, and I was enjoying time with my brand new wife, and I was just like, I got all these ideas I want to put together, and so it started actually right when I got married, as I was working full time, and before I had any children. And at the time, it was really easy. I was just posting once a month, once every couple weeks, when I would get clothes in, and then I started to really structure my days as here's how I can work early, then I can go to work and then spend time with my family. And that's really how it's broken down to now is I have very structured days, almost to a fault, where I get up at 5, I shower and shave, I then start to work before I leave for work, and then my whole day is consumed by, being at a small SaaS company can be very challenging because you wear a lot of different hats, and so I'm able to really push myself and dedicate myself to what I'm doing in my day job, which is important because I got to succeed there for everything else to fall into place. And then I can come home and really turn that stuff off, focus on my family, and then hang out with my children and then my wife, and then start the next day. And so it's definitely, you have to balance it, and you have to be very like cognizant that you are turning off your phone at certain times, or that, you know, when I'm working my day job, can't really think about going off and buying clothes. And so it sometimes it becomes challenging to do that, but especially now that I'm posting every day, I think that's a fool's errand and you shouldn't follow that logic. But it's very easy to just say, you know, this is what I'm doing right now, and then move over into the next task.
So how much of the work you do in the office at your, you know, desk job, I mean, I work at a SaaS company as well. We're a small team, 10 people, so that's really cool you're saying that. How does that carry over in just kind of your analysis of, you know, the menswear that you're looking at, just the overall trajectory of just retail in general? Like, how has there been a crossover between what you do at work and then what you do when you're at home with your YouTube content?
Yeah, the main way that that's spilled over is I now do these videos on Wednesdays where I try to talk about the retail industry as a whole, because I'm on the sales side of things, and so I need to be cognizant of here's what's going on in the retail industry, here are the trends, here's how Amazon is fighting Walmart, vice versa, here's how these micro brands are opening. It's like Soho right now is this retail playground with all these tiny brands that are opening up stores like Allbirds and Untuckit. And so we're doing that research for my day job, then I can just take the consumer's perspective, which I think guys are starting to appreciate on my channel, where I'm saying, you know, here is this new Amazon sportswear thing, and here's where it actually might be able to compete with Nike. And so that's really the main bleed over. And then the other side of that is I like to dress nice, and especially if I'm going in front of retail CEOs, I need to have you know, a certain presentation of my own self. And so that's where I'm able to apply what I do on my channel into my day job, so it's like this full cycle where I like to buy nice clothes, and so I research those for the channel. I get to wear those in meetings, present myself in a very professional manner, and then I get to research the retail industry, feed back into some of my stuff. And so I talked about this with my wife a lot, where it's like if I was told to do a project in college on the retail industry, I probably would have half-assed it and not really done anything. But now that I've like developed a very genuine interest in it, it doesn't even feel like work anymore. And so I always try to reverse engineer myself and see, like, why do I care this much about this thing, even though a few years ago I wouldn't have. And so I'm always asking myself that same type of thing.
So you said that, you know, if you had this in college, you really wouldn't care about it. So was there a moment where you're like, I'm gonna start getting into menswear? Like, I mean, you talked about like just putting a video out online, but was it just the response you were getting from people that kind of just allowed this, you know, little passion to emerge?
I always remember when I moved into a room with in college, and my friend made fun of my jean shorts that I was wearing at the time, and I was like, oh, I guess I could care a little bit more about what I wear, which is mostly like cargo shorts and graphic tees. And then when I started working at the law firm, if you're and anybody in Western Pennsylvania knows Edgar Snyder, his billboards are everywhere. You know, if you were in Erie, you saw those. So I worked for him for a year, and while I was in that spot, it was shirt and tie every day. And so I had to go and buy, like, I went to Express and J.Crew and Banana Republic, bought chinos, bought shirts, bought ties, and that was really the first time where I was like, all right, you present yourself well, you received well, versus if you wear, when I used to work for Apple, and I would wear Toms and shorts, and like and that never really fit. And so I've kind of found myself now as I develop my own personal identity, and part of that is wrapped up in clothing and how you present yourself as well.
So talk maybe a little bit more about just the overarching landscape that is men's fashion. So you're doing a lot of analytics work on a day-to-day basis, you know, trying to really bring insight to retailers. So for us as consumers, what should we look out for? And are there just some things that, you know, maybe over the next 10 years that we should be cognizant of as we're kind of going forward as consumers? I know we talk about like the retail apocalypse and all of these small brands just popping up online, kind of totally devastating all the brick and mortar businesses right now. Are there any other things that you're just analyzing from just the trend standpoint that you could share for just people out there like myself?
Yeah, right now is a very confusing time for retailers, because for the first time in many years, there isn't a specific trend that is like across the entire market, because there's such fragmentation in the way that people are dressing and the clothes that people are buying. It's like in women's wear, usually there's a certain, like in the 90s, it was a certain type of cut and a certain type of wash that every woman wanted to buy, and you could put those in the stores. And today, you have these retailers that are set up to serve that type of customer, where the Gap can make one type of chino for guys, it works on everybody, or everybody's at least buying it. But now you just see this complete fragmentation where it's like my my wife dresses a very different way than anybody else in her age cohort, because she follows a certain type of certain types of celebrities, or she really subscribes to a certain type of fashion. And the same good thing goes with menswear. There's I try to follow a lot of different genres of men's. Like I follow a couple of guys who are in streetwear, and they're always posting about these very exclusive Nikes or Adidas shoes. But then you also follow these guys that are very in true traditional menswear. So like guys of Articles of Style, where they're making this made in the USA bespoke thing. And so from a consumer standpoint, you can now get whatever you want, and it's very easy to differentiate yourself and have your own unique style. But the offshoot of that for retailers is the retailers are set up to make as many clothes for as many consumers as possible. And you see this with J.Crew and Gap, where they're these huge organizations. They have tons of people that support not just the merchandising side of it, but technology and supply chain, and they're built to be these giant companies, but customers aren't shopping at them the way they used to be. And so there's a lot of opportunity for the micro brands, which is why you're seeing so much traction with somebody like Untuck It, where their whole premise is shirts designed to be untucked. There's a lot of guys, and I know I don't watch a lot of TV, but I hear from people that watch a lot of sports, and basically Untuck It is like plastered on sports, and they know their target audience, so they can find them very easily, and they're growing in this kind of like underground way, which was impossible before the internet age, and even really impossible before like the current Facebook and Instagram age, where you can now put $100 into ads and then see $1,000 worth of sales, and just do that every day, and then continue to bring on consumers into your brand. And so I think that's why it is the most exciting time. I know I was like just on the cusp of when that started happening when I started my channel, and now I hear from a new brand every single day from my subscribers, because they're like, oh, hey, check this out, saw this on Instagram, and I would never have heard of them because I didn't get them in my Instagram ads, but they can look as big and as established as a J.Crew because they have great design or great language, and before you really couldn't do that if you were just trying to set up a shop on Main Street whenever there was no internet presence.
So you talked about the fragments. Going off of that, I agree with you. I don't think there is any genre that can't succeed in menswear right now. I think there's an audience for everyone out there, and just the digital landscape of social media, seeing, people's content online, it makes it really obtainable, and you can really kind of just, create your own kind of feel of what you like as somebody, and putting out kind of what your style is. So if you could just maybe sum up, what are the characteristics, if you're looking at an online like retailer or just a retailer in general, what are the things that they need to do to succeed now in today's landscape?
You have to be very savvy in digital marketing, so you have to have the team that can really embrace Facebook and Instagram really are the two biggest ways that people are driving direct traffic. Google Ads is a big one of that, but it's a little bit of a different strategy, whereas with Facebook you can say, I want these types of guys, and I want to put ads in front of them, I want to spend this much money, and then you can give a direct ROI based on those. So you have to be digitally savvy, but also lean. So a lot of the big companies that are now facing bankruptcy just have these huge teams. Executives are paid a lot of money. They just have hundreds, and in a lot of cases thousands of people. But then I think there's also an aspect of this, and you're seeing it with Everlane and Untuck It and Allbirds. There is an aspect of this. You can't truly succeed in pure e-commerce. It does have to be this physical retail aspect to it, not just for discovery, but for legitimacy as well. And I think from a consumer standpoint, you also want to not look for things that are too good to be true. So I talked about 5-4 Club. In their boxes, they used to position themselves as it was $120 worth of clothes for $60. Well, if you dive into a little bit, and I did a breakdown on my channel where it's like, that's not really true. You're getting $60 worth of clothing, but it's not really fair for them to say it's $120 worth of clothing. And now they've rebranded entirely and stopped doing that positioning. I don't want to take any credit for that, but the video has a lot of views on my channel. And so from a consumer standpoint, the free watch things on Instagram, watch out for those. Companies that position getting so much value for a certain price. It's like, as long as you're delivering what you're paying for, that's good. But I think there's both of those aspects to watch out for as well. So
I'm glad you brought up like the subscription boxes, because there are so many of those out there. I personally think there is just looking behind the curtain. For some reason, for me, I don't think that a lot of the integrity is there for a lot of these companies, because I think they're promising something, and once they get somebody to subscribe, they can utilize that knowledge of having somebody be a retained customer, and can leverage their relationships when it comes to getting people and other companies to offer up their products to them. They can leverage that so that they can just up their margin. So Am I right with that? I think I saw I don't know what video it was on your channel. It may have been Watch Gang or another just subscription box analysis that you did. Could you maybe just talk a little bit about that business model and what your thoughts are on it?
Yeah, I am bullish on the business model for a couple of reasons. I think because you can get enough guys together, or consumers, where you can build that group to then let the brands go and get you good deals on products. I'm not just that, but there's this other premise that I consider. I have all these video ideas that I want to put out there, and but I think that those models, and it goes right into what we were talking about being digitally savvy, those models are built on the idea that a customer isn't going to spend time going to stores anymore and shopping, and so you want that stuff to come directly to you. I think there's a right way to do it, and there's a right mix in order to give the most value to both sides of the equation, to the people who are getting the products and the people who are putting the boxes together. I think the two companies that do it best right now are Stitch Fix and Bespoke Post, for two reasons, which is that with Stitch Fix and Bespoke Post, on either of the subscriptions, you can set up the exact delivery cadence that you want. So you can either get it, if you want it every 2 weeks, you can get it every 2 weeks. If you want it every month or every 3 or 6 months, I think that's very important for us to have the control over how frequently we get them. But then also on both of them, it's very easy to skip months or customize what you're getting. Bespoke Post does this really well because you can go in and they say on the first of the month, here's the box you're going to get, here's all the stuff that's inside, and then you have 5 days to say either I don't want this box, or you can go in and customize it and either change the box entirely. And so having control, I think, is important from a consumer standpoint, but then having the audience, I think Birchbox might be one of the larger. Birchbox and Stitch Fix are basically the two biggest in menswear right now, but for them to have the leverage to say here's how many customers that we have, to then go to companies, get us good deals, and then distribute that amongst us, and then us have the control over keeping it or not keeping it. I think that's a muddy way of describing it, but in a world where time is very limited and people don't want to go shop at stores anymore, and stores start to close because it's a very expensive investment for retailers, I think the subscription model is very important. I think it'll be very prevalent as we go forward, and there's a lot of statistics that say there aren't a lot of people that have subscriptions, but the people who do have them have 7 of them. And I do find that to be the case, where I get a lot of people who say I have you have one basically in each category. So you have a clothing subscription, you have an accessory subscription, and some people have watch subscriptions and other things. And so I'm bullish on subscriptions overall, but I do agree with some of the lower tier ones, you got to kind of watch out for what you're signing up for.
So are there a couple that you recommend to maybe just people out there? Because I'm actually pretty ignorant on this subject. For me, I like the hunt, and I know a lot of other people don't, when it comes to just finding new brands and really just kind of building up their own sense of just style. But can you maybe just mention some other boxes, subscription services that people should maybe look out for?
I think the two primary, especially if you're in that mode, so if you want to do discovery and you're into the hunt, Stitch Fix will fill a box of clothes for you with different brands, and they're usually smaller brands because the big ones they're starting to kind of embrace that and starting to work with them. But it also gives you receive a box, and then you pay for what you keep, and you send back what you don't want. That's very important to me as part of the control of saying all right, I got this stuff, I got to try it out, I didn't really like it, so you send it back, and then you're not really dinged for doing that. And then to that point, I think this is another one where I've tried to really conceptualize and say it's the company Watch Gang. I got Watch Gang for the last year. I think my 12 months that I paid for it is just up now. But there are these 3 segments of guys now that I've really tried to figure out and say who is Watch Gang for. There's the hunt, I saw your watch collection video. I think you have an incredible collection. Your Datejust and your Constellation. I can't tell you how many times I almost bought a Constellation from the 50s and 60s. But there's that type of guy that just wants 1 or 2 really nice pieces, and instead of spending $1,200 on a Watch Gang subscription, should spend that on you could buy almost 2 Constellations or some of those older models for $1,200. And then I'm in the Watch Gang Facebook group, and I'm constantly shocked at how many guys go in and say, I've got $50 in PayPal, show me what you have. And they just, I can't imagine some of the collections that some of these guys have of $50 to $200 quartz watches, and there's a certain amount of guys that are there. Watch Gang, I think, has most of them now. They've got 10 to 15,000 subscribers. And then there's guys that either like don't care about watches at all, or they're the ones that are wearing Movement or Daniel Wellington watches. And so I think figuring out which of those you are before you dive into a box, or what's really nice about all of them is they're pretty much monthly, and so you can just say like, all right, I just want to try this out for like 2 or 3 months, see what it's like, and it's not a huge investment like Stitch Fix. You really only pay for what you keep. So it might cost you $20 to get a box, and then if you keep anything, it's there. So I think back to the original one, if you're looking for recommendations on early ones, I do think Stitch Fix is a good one. Bespoke Post is another really good one. Gives you a lot of control, and they have a wide variation of things. So I just got, I think it got delivered yesterday. It's called the Steam Box, where it comes with these like really nice high-end Egyptian cotton towels and hand towels, a bamboo toothbrush, and I think some sort of toothpaste. And it's like, it's not just clothes that you're getting too. I think the other thing I got a food torch in one of them, so that I can make I can either torch my sous vide food, which I love sous vide, and that's a whole different discussion, but then you can also make these like smoked cocktails. So it came with a cedar plank and then this glass that you can then make cedar cocktails on. And so I think Bespoke Post is another really cool one. And then between the others, if you're looking for like the other group of guys that really need this, who need like ties every day, or they want to have certain accessories, either Gentleman's Box or Sprezza Box are really good ones, and those are ones where you can just pay like the $25 for 2 or 3 months, see how you like it, and keep going. Or what I'm really trying to do with my channel is like catalog all these companies. So if you are interested in Bespoke Post, Birchbox, Gentleman's Box, I can't think of all the boxes that I've done. I basically have like 6 to 12 months worth of boxes that people can go back, see what was in my boxes, and then make the decision for yourself and say like, okay, that's what I really want. That's the type of product I want. And so that's been part of how I've really thought about my channel in the past 18 months, I'd say, is how I've shifted that.
So you mentioned Omega Constellation, so I got excited, and I actually looked at your watch collection video, and one thing that stood out for me was your vintage Omega and the story behind it, because one of the big things that I love about watches is the story behind them and just kind of what they really represent as something we wear on our wrists. So could you maybe just tell about that Omega bumper that you have and what you have engraved in the back and how you found it? I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I almost put it on today. I have my other Seamaster on, my Commander's version there, and actually I'll lead. Now I'll finish the story off with this. So I've always wanted the very first watch that I wanted and this was when I was working at the law firm, and I was like, you know what I want? I want that Daniel Wellington watch with the white face and the gold plated outside or whatever it is, fake gold, and the brown leather bracelet. I've always wanted white, gold, brown, and so I would always go in and search for eBay. I would search eBay for 1967 Omega, because after my father passed away, I was like, I want his birth year in an Omega watch. And so I would always go online, search 1967 Omega, and then this year I had the opportunity to get this Seamaster, which is the brand new Commander's Edition, and I was like, I was really shocked that I even ended up going forward with it. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to lay low for a while. I don't need to buy any more watches. That was a big investment, and I really don't need any other watches, especially with my watch gang collection. And so one day, I always find myself, if I have like a lot of work to do, I go on eBay and I search eBay for watches. It's kind of I think you had described it in your video as a sickness. Like, it becomes this like bug where you're just constantly churning on it. And so I went on eBay towards the end of last year, searched 1967 Omega, and I came across this one that I really liked, brown. It's not crocodile, alligator, reptile, a brown reptile bracelet, gold plated. It wasn't 67, and as I was going through, I was like, okay, that's pretty nice. You know, it's a really good condition. It's gorgeous gold. It's just what I want, but I don't really need it. And then on one of the screenshots, it showed that it was engraved with JPS, which are my dad's initials. And I was like, well, I really like this watch, but now I have to buy it. And so I just hit the buy button. It came a few weeks later, and now that's the most special piece of my collection, which is this 1950s bumper model. It's 34 millimeter. It's like this perfect vintage old model, and I couldn't be more pleased that I decided to procrastinate that day and get that. And actually, that ties in well. This fish up here, this is a barracuda that my dad caught on one of his last fishing trips, and I got a little fracture of him catching the fish too. And so I'm going to hang this up underneath the fish, but I'm moving into this new studio, and that was one of the first things that I brought out here. And so I owe everything about my entire personality and everything to my dad, and so that's my way of honoring him.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. So you have all these watches that you got from Watch Gang, and for me, I like I said, I like the hunt. I made a ton of mistakes when buying watches. I mean, I got totally caught up in all the fashion watches, and as much as I would recommend somebody going through the journey of trying to buy watches, probably stay away from those watches because I think a lot of them don't deliver on value. I don't think I should cast a lens over all of them because I think there are some that are better than others, but generally, I think that the quality that you're getting mostly like a $30 watch for the $120 price point for a lot of these fashion brands. So I guess my question is, so for Watch Gang, because I am learning more and more about it, like after 12 months, would you just recommend somebody go through that? And like if you do, who would you say it's for?
Where I've come to with that, there's two parts of that. So you ask about recommendations for subscription companies. There's a company called TC Watch Club where they actually rent like mid-tier nicer watches to you. It's like $15 or $14.99, and then you get to keep that watch for 2 weeks, wear it, and then you send it back at the end of that cycle. I think that's a really cool way to talk about being in control of having, here's your watch, you get to send it back, you're not really charged for anything except you get to get the watch and see what you like. What I've come to realize over the last 12 months is it's helped me on my journey, just like you're saying, where you bought a couple of fashion watches, you got burned, and you're starting to find yourself in the watch thing. The Watch Gang process for me has been like, here's what I want in a watch, here's how big I want it, here's the type of complications that I want on it. So for me, it was very valuable in order to figure out my own personal taste in what I want for the watch. And what I would say to anybody that's looking at those services, depending on your price sensitivity, where my main recommendation is starting to come in is like just get like the 3-month platinum subscription where you're not going to get you're not going to have it for a whole year. You're not going to get a ton of them. Depending on how much you want to invest in that process, I don't think you need it for a year, but I think having like 2 or 3 extra watches where you're not paying what you would be paying for the full retail or whatever you would end up paying for a watch, I think it's worth doing that in order to figure it out, because like you're saying, you can go out and buy a couple of vintage Rolexes, but then you might figure out that you don't really want that, either that style, that model, that color, or something else. And I think you really only figure that out after having things on your wrist for a while. What I'd really like to see is that TC Watch Club model, but applied to, I think I talked to Christian about this, was take that model and do that with vintage watches. There's a couple of companies that are doing that where you can sign up and pay like $50 a month, and then they'll send you certain Omegas or Rolexes or vintage or other things. And so that's what I'd really like, and I think the next best version of that is something like Watch Gang or this TC Watch Club, because the TC Watch Club, I think the watch I got from them was a Carpenter watch, which is a Brooklyn company, and they make automatic movements with. I don't think it was an ETA movement. It was some kind of automatic movement. But I think if you're trying to get into that world, if you don't have a friend that can just give you a bunch of watches and you can try them out and see what you like, I think those are a good way to figure out, when you are ready to go hunting, what do you want to have on your wrist.
I think you make a good point. You need to have something on your wrist to really come to a definitive decision on whether or not you like it. One thing I'll say for myself was I bought a lot of watches quickly, and I think just that level of consumerism when it comes to watches can be dangerous, especially if you're buying watches that don't retain value. So a lot of these fashion brands, and the good thing about myself was I did buy a Rolex. I bought a 1601, and after wearing it for a few months, I actually purchased it from Christian, and he was a nice enough guy to help me exchange it. But through that process, though, I realized that I liquidated a lot of those fashion watches, didn't get anything in return for them. That Rolex didn't lose any of its value. So I think that was one of the big important things. I like that idea about the vintage watch world and having that kind of model associated with it. That could be really interesting. But I guess for myself, just if I have to interject a little bit here, is just the ability to just know value. And if you are trying to get a sense and you're learning, is if you are going to have to liquidate, if you don't like it, you have to think about am I going to be able to get anything in return for this in a couple months? Because in a lot of cases for a lot of these lower tier brands, you're not. So
I think you got to go into it with saying like, well, if you want to get into this hobby, you might be taking a bath in the beginning.
True. So another thing to talk about, kind of going off of that, one thing that bothers me in this space, and I don't know if it's the same for you, don't want to put words in your mouth, is it's almost like there's like a selling of your soul when it comes to just pushing products. And I mean, one of the things I see a lot are products, especially like fashion watches. Like I see Movement all the time being promoted, and I don't necessarily want to rip on those guys because I think they're fantastic digital marketers. They are known by so many people, and I think there's a lot of things that even brands like Rolex, Omega, they can learn from these guys. But that said, I think there is maybe an integrity question here, and I'm thinking about bigger brand or bigger names on this site on YouTube that have even a younger following, and they're pushing these products that I think are not really standing by the price point that they're being offered up at. But a lot of these guys are just saying these are great products, and it's hard for me to really think about this sometimes. And like for myself, as I continue to grow this channel, there's going to be a conversation I'm going to have with brands. So I don't know about you, what you think here in that aspect, because I mean you're a bigger channel than myself. How will you handle that, or how have you handled that? And then if you are going to be working with somebody, what is it for you that you're looking for before you would want to offer up somebody's product or promote it?
Past 2 years, not only have these digital marketing, Movement watches have gotten more money and they're ready to go out and spend it, and the larger channels, those guys are ready to take their money and talk about the products as well. And my channel now, I think, has become more of an antithesis of that, because I can almost speak truth to power. I did that video where I talked about you can essentially buy a Movement watch for like $5 or $10 on Alibaba, and the way you can go through that. And I was really shocked at how big that video went, and I get a lot of people that ask me who I was working with so that they can build their own watch. Like that whole world is like so crazy to me, and just what's going on in that space. But as I've now grown, I started getting emails from Movement directly. I think it was in that video when I hit a couple thousand subscribers, and they're like, "Hey, we'd love to send you watches in exchange for video." And I was like, "Hey, I already did this video. I don't know if you saw it." And so I get inbound. I think I get every maybe 3 to 5 times per week, I get an email from a different watch brand, fashion watch brand, that want to do a promotion or collaboration or something. And I look at all of them, and they all look the same. They all have the story of, we didn't see a watch that we wanted in the market, so we went and built it, and here's how we're saving, cutting out the middleman, and they go through the whole thing. And if I cataloged them in my email, there would probably be at least 140 of them. There's so many watch companies out there. For me, what I'm trying to figure out with my channel, and I'm in the middle of writing like my manifesto for the channel too, is like, I think there's a space right now to take the wire cutter model, which is how I really started my channel, which is to say, I'm going to just take everything I can together and give you what is the best item, best shirt, best watch, best thing, based on a price point without any other input. And so that's really what I'm trying to build on my own channel, is to say, like, there's a space for sponsorships and advertisements on YouTube, and there's a proper way to do it. And I don't know if for me, if that is using the sponsorships of like food subscription companies in order to fund my ability to go out and buy all these different custom suits so I can find the best custom suit, or if I had like a corporate sponsorship from like BMW. I drive a BMW. I'm not sponsored by BMW, but if I had a corporate sponsorship from a car company so that I can go have an independent voice in the fashion retail world, that's where that's my bet on where the future is going with this type of platform, because I think the BS meter, especially on younger guys, younger viewers, is so much higher than it would have been for anybody who grew up in the TV age, when you used to watch ads for people that, for companies that would say that doctors say that you can smoke and it's healthy, and that type of thing. Like, there's that whole world that is being left behind for these people who are much sharper and much more engaged in the content. And that's really what I'm trying to do on here, is to say, I got all these subscription companies, none of them are sponsoring this video, here's the best one, and here's how you can use it. And so I think in this space, there's a lot of people that are taking that money, and I think that people can see right through them. I think that those are the ones that are going to be a flash in the pans. They go up very big. Logan Paul's an easy one to pick on, but I even think of some of the channels that have popped up on my thing. It's like they go up very big, they'll probably have some nice success, and then they'll fade off. I'm trying to build something that's very long and slow, but I see all of the equity that I'm building in putting out the video of my channel as building trust with people, so that I can then be a resource for especially young guys. Like, if you want to go out and buy your first nice pair of chinos and you think that $100 on a pair of chinos is way too much, and I'm able to explain why that's a good thing, I think to have an independent voice like that is very unique and special. And so I don't know many other people that are doing that yet, but I have a feeling that I might be the first one to really pave that way, and then hopefully others will follow, because that only helps everybody.
Yep, dude, you're totally echoing everything I believe, and I think who is going to succeed in this space, I think now more than ever, and I think you can see with brands, the brands that are succeeding online are the ones that have that trust factor with their audience and with their customers, and we see that in retail even. Like I know you did a video about J.Crew. I did as well because I love J.Crew. I mean, I shop there all the time, and when I was analyzing them, I think one of the things they kind of forgot about is they scaled out so much of their brick and mortar location. They went overseas, started building locations over there, that I think there was a sense of losing who they're making their clothes for. And I think the same thing can go for YouTube content. So as I continue to scale, I think as you continue to scale, having that intention lined up is important. And I do want to build a trust factor. That's why I'm doing this. I like interacting with the people that are leaving comments, and I really appreciate it. So that's awesome that you have that approach, and I hope there's going to be more people out there that will do the same.
I was looking behind me because I've got
6 boxes from J.Crew right now that I'm about to go put something together. But to that point, with J.Crew losing their identity in this splintering of all the people that are here, J.Crew used to be that monolith, and it was like they had a certain lifestyle. But now there are aspects of J.Crew that people like before, where they can go to individual brands. So like anybody who liked really great basics can go to Everlane, get really well priced things, and just that's a very authentic retailer in itself. Or somebody that was maybe leaned more towards the preppy side, they can go to Vineyard Vines, which is a weird hybrid between like traditional retailer. I got one of their shirts on right now. They're like a weird hybrid between traditional retailer and online retailer. Or if you just really liked something, like Bonobos, I think is occupying a space for that as well, which was like higher mid to higher tier, high quality type of thing. And so to that plays exactly into the splintering as well, which is why I think J.Crew has been struggling, because they've kind of lost their identity.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about a couple of brands there, and I'll mention one right now that I'm wearing. It's called Taylor Stitch. I don't know if you're familiar with that brand, but absolutely love them. I think
they're USA.
Yep, great. I think they're a really interesting alternative to J.Crew, and I've really fallen in love with the brand. Are there any other brands that, you get comments all the time. I think you've done more videos on menswear than I have. I do a lot of watch videos as well. So I'd like to just kind of hear, what are some of the brands that you've discovered? What are the ones that you like? Maybe some you don't like, and just kind of put that out there.
That is very broad. I think.
So like if we were to start with like business casual, like if you want to like look good when you go to the office, I still think Bonobos is one of the best out there. I think they occupy what J.Crew used to be, which is like you pay a little bit more for the clothes, but the quality is there. Like I have pairs of Bonobos chinos that I've had for 5, almost 7 years, and that's because I cycle them and I take very good care of them and I wash them and everything. But I think they still have that quality to price ratio, which is very favorable to us. They have great lines across shirts, sweaters, and everything else. The other one that I'm really interested in, I think I got like my steamer hanging up here. There's a company called Woody's that is based in New York, where they do all custom clothes. But I'm putting a video together now where I'm going to start to recommend them, because their chinos are $98, but they're custom chinos. So you can put in your waist, you can put in your length, and you get the exact perfect fit. And I've been really impressed with them. And they occupy a similar space where it's like just really great casual dress wear. Chinos are really nice. Let me see. For dress shirts, I really like what's going on in the performance space. Actually, Woody's makes a performance shirt that I've been really enjoying. But companies like Mizzen and Main, Ministry of Supply, State and Liberty, they have these performance dress shirts where you don't have to dry clean them as much. They have moisture wicking and technology built into them. And so if you wear dress shirts all the time, I think it's cool to have 1 or 2 of those in your rotation, so you can like offset all the times you're wearing not quite as comfortable clothes, but they're also usually more durable. Shoes is one of the most interesting spaces. I think there's been a dozen shoe companies that have started up in the past 5 or 10 years where they're just doing that direct e-com business. But actually, if you want great dress shoes at those prices, they all come in about $200 or so, which I think is a really nice sweet spot for great dress shoes. I just did a video on Allen Edmonds Factory Seconds, where you can get basically $400 shoes for $200. They're just not as perfect and pristine as Allen Edmonds. And so Allen Edmonds, being a 100-plus-year-old company, or 1922 is when they were founded, almost 100-year company, that you can get their shoes, which you will get like respected by people in the menswear space for having Allen Edmonds, because they're made in the USA, high quality shoes, but you can get them for almost 50% off. So some cool space there. And then like Beck and Simonon, great shoes. Jack Irwin. I'm trying to look at some of the other ones. Oh, great. If you want like really nice like leather sneakers that are better than Stan Smith's, and they're actually handmade in Italy, Greats make some really good ones at good prices too.
Awesome. There's a lot of brands in there I wasn't even familiar with, so I'm gonna watch this video again. And
I got 380 videos on my channel as of now, so I've covered a lot of brands.
Yeah, I've followed your content for a while, and I've actually purchased a lot of I remember Batch. There's a couple other brands as well.
Yeah, Batch is good.
Yeah, I like Batch a lot. I'm going to be reviewing one of their shirts soon. But there's a lot of brands that you mentioned. I actually watched your Alan Edmonds video, and I'm going to be buying some brown Oxfords from them. So I'll probably go all out because I think I like their motto when it comes to they can totally. You have that warranty factor with it. You can resend it back. They'll clean up your shoe, polish it, and they'll resole it as well.
Yeah, you can actually pay the Recrafting service. There's an upcharge where you can actually change the shoe. So if you buy one with a leather sole, you can then pay to get the Recrafting service, but then you'll pay like $10 extra, and you can switch it to a day-night sole, or you can switch it to like a red sole. So they have all these options within that space as well. And I think that's an incredible model where you literally can get 15, 20 years out of a shoe by taking care of it, getting it recrafted, and they do that whole thing.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Bonobos in there, and I think they're really an interesting company. I stumbled on them when I was in New York City. I needed to go buy a dress shirt. I needed something last minute. I forgot to pack it when I traveled, and I went in there the first time, and this was probably several years back. And I go in there to try to buy something, and it's just how they set up their store, where it's all made to measure. They measure you in the store. They don't really handle that much inventory in the actual store itself. I think is really interesting, and they were just purchased by Walmart just this past year or so. Is that correct? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you think about that type of model? And are there going to be any other just type of approaches to menswear and the brick and mortar hybrid, which I would like to call them as? How are people approaching that, and are retailers adjusting to kind of what's going on right now?
Well, I thought your story was going to end with you went in for a last-minute shirt and you walked out with nothing.
That's what happened.
And you do see that feedback a lot, and their main argument is that guys don't want to go out shopping and walk home with a bunch of bags. Guys like the convenience of shopping, and then it shows up at their door 2 days later, which you need to have a very sophisticated supply chain in order to do that. Talking about the menswear space or overall industry trends, part of the reason that these stores are dragging these companies down is because when a company wants to put out a new button down, they have to invest $250,000 to $500,000 just to get that into all their stores, get the right sizing structure and everything. So if I were to pontificate on where that's going in reference to the Bonobos model, I think Bonobos has it right, where they have this incredibly sophisticated supply chain and delivery system behind their stores and behind their e-com site, where the reason that I shop for them so much is because they have so many sizes. And for me, I wear technically a 30-35 in pants, which 30-34 is the one that they carry, and I can buy my size in their clothes nearly every product all the time. And the reason I've got 6 boxes from J.Crew is because when I ordered the clothes from them, they just shipped. It was so weird. I had one order, which was a bunch of stuff from the 1984 collection, and they shipped me 7 boxes. I have one big one with 3 items, and I've got a bunch of individual items. That's wasteful to J.Crew, and they got to figure that thing out. But with Bonobos, they have the delivery system, they have the product, they have the brand identity, and then they have these retail stores, which helps them get recognition. If I were to step out a couple of years beyond that, I think there's going to be smaller boutique, and you're seeing this with Target's going smaller format. Warby Parker took the Bonobos model, Allbirds took the Bonobos model. You're going to have these companies that just have these stores where you can go in, experience the product, and then come home and your product will be there. But then there's also in the menswear space, because the price of building custom clothes is coming down so much. I've got a dress shirt right here that was $40. It was custom. It's not a great dress shirt, but it's a custom dress shirt. And now that the technology is being kind of rolled out and more accessible to all these companies, I think you'll be able to have, just like Woody's, instead of paying $100 for chinos that fit really well but not quite perfectly, and so you'd have to get them tailored, you'll be able to get them at custom. So I don't know that Tailor Stitch would really go into this, but Proper Cloth's the other probably the most recognizable one in the mid-tier space, where you can go in and you can say, I want these 3 colors and this pattern in a dress shirt. They'll make it all the exact same size. I really think that that's where this is headed, because that technology is coming so low. And so in the Bonobos thing, you might walk in and they'll have your profile, and you'll see a few shirts, and you'll say, I like this shirt, this shirt, this shirt. And then in maybe 4 days they'll deliver custom shirts to you based on your size profile because you've shopped for them before. And actually Amazon has made a lot of investments in this. They call it on-demand manufacturing. So when you go it's the buttoned up button down is their private label for like this these dress shirts that they make. When you order their shirts, they're delivered by Prime, but it takes them 4 days to get here because they actually manufacture them on the fly based on the size that you pick and the color you pick, and they manufacture them and deliver them to you within a week, which is just incredible, first off. And so that might be a space where they could sell the technology to other menswear companies. Who knows? But I think in the future, especially in the menswear space, you might go to 3 different brands where you have your custom profile, and you might just get custom clothes from each of them because the prices come down so dramatically.
So what's next for your channel? So you've grown really fast in the last year. I mean, I followed you for some time, and you really have shot up a good amount. So what do you have next plan?
I need to make the shift from so many of my videos are based on like somebody wants to buy something and my video is going to be right there, and that's how my channel has grown. So like 90% of my views come from non-subscribers, which they say is healthy in the YouTube space, but I need to make more stuff for the people who are already subscribed. And so I get so many questions on like shirt care, how to make your underwear last so long. People want to know how I break up my day and manage my time. So like I need to not just discover new brands and feature new brands, new products, but then also to focus on the questions that I get all the time, which is like just how, what I'm building, why I'm building, that type of thing. And so I want to focus more on the roundups, which is very important. So like a roundup of all the best performance dress shirts, a roundup of the best chinos. Like I got a video that I started a few weeks ago, which is like I've got Bonobos, Banana Republic, the Amazon button-down chinos, J.Crew, and a custom company. It's like I got chinos from all of them, and I can talk about each of them and how their price points relate to the quality and how the fit and that type of thing. And so I need to focus more on the roundups versus just the unboxings, because the unboxings are really easy to shoot, especially now that I installed a camera mount up on my wall here. But in the future, I would like to dedicate more time to building this space, and then also bringing more people in. So I have my site that's now launched where I'd like to have people who are more specialized in something like Allen Edmonds talk about footwear, the difference between certain types of shoes, certain types of leathers. I want to bring more people into that process because I can only do so much. I only know so much, but I want to bring in experts that are really more well versed in different types of topics in menswear.
Awesome. Well, John, we've been talking for a good amount of time. Yeah, we have. So, I mean, I've had a lot of fun, and I want to tell everybody out there that's watching this, go check out the Kavalier, the channel. It's amazing. If you're just trying to figure out what to buy, wanting to learn more about menswear, as you can see what John's been saying throughout, he knows his stuff. So go give him a like, go give him a subscribe, and go check him out. But John, thank you so much for joining us for the interview today. Love to chat and meet up sometime because you're not too far away from me in our locations here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you want the hour-long version of how I went from being a swim captain in high school to starting a YouTube channel, I do a podcast with Brock McGough at The Modest Man. It's called Buttoned Up. It's on iTunes. And I did a whole hour session where I talked about my story, Brock talks about his story. We bring other menswear guys in there too. So either the channel or the podcast, you'll be able to hear my voice everywhere.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you.